Hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the third episode of Explore and Learn at Twing. And today I'm with Baha as usual. So we'll start with a trivia quiz, I guess.
Okay, so do you have any interesting questions in mind?
So, Baha, let me test your knowledge on space missions. So, if
Okay,
you're
go
ready,
ahead.
I'm going to ask you the first question. All right. So, what was the first manned mission to land the
Okay, so the first one to land on the moon, not the first manned mission to go to space. The first one to land would be Apollo 11. There's actually a really interesting documentary about it that came out last year. If you're interested in the space program, then I really suggest you watch it. It's called Apollo 11.
And there is also a movie about Apollo 13 as well. I mean, that's the going on, right?
13 is the one that went pretty poorly, but fortunately, nobody on board died. So even though there were some failures, it was still, in some ways, a success in that they could save everybody involved. Akin, hi, are you still there? I think Akin might have just disconnected. I'm not getting any video from her. So maybe I'll talk about some other stuff. In the meantime, questions that Akin will hopefully keep on asking. The reason why we're doing this is because we plan on making our own trivia competition today by using coding. Akin, hi, are you there?
Yep, I'm back.
Okay, cool. So, do you have some other questions to ask me?
So another one I will ask you today is, and by the way, I missed the part where you explained Apollo 13. What did you say back then?
Apollo 13 is so even though a lot of things went wrong, they could still save everybody involved because there were some necessary precautions that they took. So even though it was a failure in the sense that it didn't fulfill its mission, it's still a successful mission because even though all this stuff went wrong, they could still save everybody on board.
Oh, I see. So let's continue with the second question.
Okay.
Baha, are there more codes in Apollo 11 system or in our phones?
I mean, my phone
shuttle, and the other one's just the size of a, I don't know, your hand. So
yeah. And from what I know, the computers that were used to launch the shuttle were massive. They filled entire rooms. So, and my phone is tiny, it fits in my hand. But there's also 50 years of, well, but there's also 50 years of development in between. The main reason why.
So longer codes, doesn't it mean like that?
Well, but I mean, since the invention of the transistor, most computers have become really small while being even more powerful than they used to be. So I assume my phone would have more code in it.
Yes, you're right. There are more codes in our phone's operating system.
Wow, cool.
There is
So
no
there's
way.
actually a lot of efforts put into it, even though we may not realize it.
So the third question comes right away. Who invented the modern computer?
Okay, so I know the answer to this one. The inventor of the modern computer is um, thought of as Alan Turing.
Yes, you're right. And during World War II, he took an important mission to defend his country.
Oh yes, he's often credited as the person to crack the Enigma code, but that's actually incorrect. The first people to do so were the Polish. They had their own device called the Bombay, which they used to decode the Enigma code, but it was Turing who sort of improved on it and built a more efficient version of that.
Well, I didn't even know that.
So that's another interesting piece of information for you.
So right now we're going to make a contest between the two of us. So we'll try to count all the sensors used in a phone, and we'll stop when one of us runs out of answers to this question.
Okay.
Okay, so go ahead, Baha.
So my phone has a touch screen. That's a sensor.
I believe mine has a gyroscope. So when I tilt my phone up and down, it's it becomes available to that screen mode.
And mine has an accelerometer, which understands when the phone is falling so that the camera retracts to protect it.
And mine also has a microphone that allows me to speak to you, just like my computer.
So my phone has a light sensor, so that when I set the brightness to auto, it detects how much light is in the room so that it can adjust that accordingly.
Yeah, you're right. And another one related to light is the camera. So when you try to take pictures of something, there are like little sensors, like light sensors, as you said before, that works to capture that moment and save it in your camera roll.
That's really nice. And my phone also has a proximity sensor, so that when I'm talking on the phone, when the phone is right next to my face, the whole screen goes dark, and it also prevents me from touching it with my cheek accidentally.
Yeah, you're right. And another one, I guess I've run out of questions. I mean, answers. Do you have anything else?
Most phones also have a thermometer to prevent overheating. They measure the internal temperature so that if it's too hot, then it stops charging to prevent it from heating up even further and damaging the circuits.
No, I see. And I guess it also works when it's too cold. I mean, just
and some phones.
My phone stopped working because of the cold.
Yeah, exactly. And some phones also have a humidity sensor, so that if there's any water in the charging port, then it prevents it from charging to prevent a short circuit that might also damage the phone.
Oh, I see.
So there are actually a lot of sensors in our phones that we may not be aware of.
Okay, so after this trivia contest, what are you going to show us today?
Well, today we'll actually make one of those on our own. So let's look at what we have for you. So let me share my screen. We are going to be preparing a trivia contest. And to do that, we will go to code.twinscience.com as always. And today we'll learn something else that's also really important in programming. In the days before, we talked about input and output and the steps in between. One of those was storage. So now we'll actually talk more about storage and see how we can store data. To do that, let's go to the website. Yes. So I currently have code.twinscience.com on my screen. And as you can see, we still have our little friend here, and we have all of these blocks that we've looked at in the past, and now we'll do some other interesting stuff with it. One of those is ask. So since we're doing a trivia competition, we need to ask some questions, and to do that, we will do this. For example, what's your name? So to have this little sprite here ask that question to us, let's put this to start the code. And when I press this green flag, then we get the question.
So this is like an easier trivia. I mean, who wants to be a tuner should be more
Since my name
complex
is
than
Baha,
this.
well, let's start with the basics, and once we're done with that, we can maybe work on the more interesting stuff, right?
All right.
So I'll write my name and press this button. So it disappeared, but where did my answer go? We need to get that answer somehow, right?
Yeah.
So that answer is actually here. This answer, when I click, it actually shows the answer that I gave. So we can use this to store some data. This it was called a variable, and the reason why it's called a variable, yes.
So you're saying that it's like now the storage is working to save your answer.
Yes, this block answer is storing whichever data I give to it. And the reason why it's called a variable is because the content can vary. It's not fixed. We can change it. So let's find a way to use this. As you can see, the shape of this is actually very similar to these holes in these blocks. So let's have our twinner friend here talk to us and say, hello, Baha. Okay, so now it just says, whenever I input my name, it repeats my name. But we need to add something else to this, right? We need the sentence that comes before this. And to do that, we'll actually go here. We will join two different texts. So the first part will be hello, and then the second part will be my answer. So now that, for example, if Ikin, you write your name, then it says hello, Ikin.
So Baha, I have a question for you.
Yes.
As you were moving your cursor up and down on the list, so every block that looks like an oval is a variable, right?
Well, we can put a variable in all of these that are ovals, yes. At the bottom, we see this section called variables, which we will start looking at really quickly.
Okay.
Okay. So now we are clear to the trivia contest. So what we can do after this is actually start asking new questions. And our friend should react differently if the answer is correct, and maybe create a couple costumes. Let's duplicate this twice. And let's look at costume 2. Well, a lot of things we can draw and change this as we like. And you can even do some completely new stuff by uploading them. This button at the button. So
can you draw something on it?
Is perhaps. Yes, I'll draw a smiley face, for example. So let's maybe copy this color, and then we can paint over the mouth.
Can we also draw a mustache so it's like a fancy surprise?
Sure. So I've gotten rid of their mouth, and then I'll draw the smiles and the mustache. So let's make this a bit thinner. Or, well, okay, so this is smiley face as well, maybe.
Mustache, okay?
And then, okay, so here comes the mustache. Well, he looks quite ugly. So maybe we can change the color of his mouth. But maybe give him a white mouth. So I've erased what I've drawn on it, and then I'll make the color different. I'll maybe pick red, or let's go with the white to be consistent. So we have a small smiley face. And then let's switch to the other one. And then we'll draw a sad face. So to do that, let's so as we can see, our friend is quite sad that we got the wrong result. If you have better drawing skills than me, you can certainly do a better job than this. But since I'm not good at drawing, well, it's gonna be like this. So we have our introduction, and now we can move on to the questions. So now what we want to do is see if the answer is correct or not. So to do that, which block should we use again? Do you have an idea?
Yesterday you just showed us if and then blocks. I guess we should have if then and also the else block.
Yes, we need this block to make sure if the answer is correct or not. So let's fill in the stuff. So if the answer is correct, then we want to switch to costume 2, right? The happy one.
Yeah.
And then if it's not, then we'll switch to costume 3. And maybe we can even change the backdrop when we're doing this. So we have some interesting backdrop we can choose. Our background. So let's see. So if you want to change it at home, then you can go on here and even in the background when you're doing this stuff. Okay. Okay. Here it is. It will just light. Okay. So this will be our backdrop when we're doing this. That's great. So let's go back to our spread. So we want to check if an answer is correct. And to do that, we first need to ask our question, right? So let's add this right here, the question, and then we will do something with the answer that comes to it. So yesterday, when we were checking if two things were the same, we used the equals block, right?
You're right, Baha.
But that was only with numbers. That was only part of the picture. We can actually use this with text as well. So we can actually check if the answer is the same as something else. So if, for example, it's a kid playing with this, then it can consider that to be a different result than if it's Baha, for example. So let's do these. So when I run this code, it asks me what my name is. If it's Baha, it's a sad face. But if it's Akin, then it's sad. We have one important part to this. How are we going to count how many points we have and how many wrong answers we got? So I mentioned that we will use these variables. So we'll make one. Let's call it points. So we have points in this upper left corner in the screen. So we can see how many points we have over here, what the value of this variable is. So we want to change this if the answer is correct or not, right?
But I would rather want Sprite to be like always happy no matter what the answer is.
Okay, so we don't really have to switch the costume. Maybe we can have him say something about this. For example, he can say if the answer is correct or if it's not. So, oops. We can change these as we like. And to have him have a happy face in the beginning, we can always switch the costume to costume do in the beginning of the code so that when it starts, it's the answer is incorrect. And now we'll look at how we can actually change the value of the variable here and look at change. So we're going to need two of these so we can copy and paste. So if the answer is correct, let's give 2 points. So we change points by 2. And if it's not, then let's deduct a point. So we change points by -1. Let's try. So let's ask our first question. Question should be, Akin, do you have any interesting ideas for questions?
Yes, I mean, for all this week we were talking about coding and computers. So here is a term I didn't know that existed, and I just heard it like yesterday. So I'm going to ask you this, and after you answer, you can write it as a question as well. So, what is a float number?
What is a float number? That's a really important question when we're talking about programming. A float number is basically any number that has decimal points, right? It doesn't have to be an integer.
Oh, so as opposed to integer, it's like it has both, I mean, digits both side of this decimal point.
Yes, so 1.5 is a float, but it's not an integer. 1 is an integer, but it's also a float, since it's also equal to 1.0. So what do you think, or what should our answer be again?
What is a float number? It's a decimal number.
Okay, decimal number. Great. Or, well, maybe we can copy this and then use this same formula for all of the other questions, right?
I didn't
Since
know
we
we
don't
could
want.
do that.
Yeah, since we're going to use this identical code multiple times, we can just copy and paste this until we have enough one for questions. So how many questions do you think we should? Again, how many questions do you think we should have? 4, 5?
5. 5 would be enough, I guess.
Let's go with 5 questions. It's yeah. So that's 4, and that's 5. So we have 5 of these. Oh, and as you may notice, the points at the top left corner is currently at -5. But we don't want to start anybody off with negative points. So what we can do is we'll set the variable to 0 in the beginning so that we don't have any left from the previous rounds. Every round is reset.
Maybe we
So
can
when
do
you start the game, you always start with 0 points, as you can see. So
maybe we can start with 10. So
yes, hi.
So I just said maybe we can start with 10 as it takes some courage to join the trivia. So, I mean, the person who has
So
the answer.
yeah, so what you can do at home is change this to whichever number you want. You can even make a new variable called start points and have that the initial number to start with. Now we have to set that to whatever number we want, right?
Okay.
We can even make that 10 or make that 0 so that the number of points that you start with is equal to start points. But we don't really need that right now. So in order to keep things simple, I'll get rid of this. This will just show you what it is and connect these back. So what should be your second question?
So you just described a float number based on an integer. So maybe we could ask if the number 2 is an integer.
That's really good. Let me just add the questions so that we don't forget to ask the question every round. Oops.
Oh, that's a long block.
Yes, because we have all of these different questions that we're going to ask. So I think we have, oh, we forgot the first one, right? Let me just duplicate that. Oops, I duplicated the whole thing. So we always can undo what we just did. So when that's the case, you can always undo what you have just done.
But I guess computer programmers also use variables to shorten their code, don't you think?
Yes, if you have something that you need to write again and again and again, then you can always use variables to do that. I think I accidentally duplicated the whole thing Let me just fix that. Well, this is a part of programming, so you should get used to doing this. So let me just delete all of these. So now we have a question and an answer for each one. So is 2 a float, right?
Is 2 an integer?
Oh, is 2 an integer, right?
Yeah.
And the answer we expect is yes. Great. So what
But
should
Baha,
be
I have
the
another
third
question.
one?
Baha,
Yes.
before you move on to the third one, so what if someone answers, I don't know, to the second question? I mean, is
Well,
2 an integer? I don't know.
oh, so we can always maybe tell the right answer when we're telling them that the answer is wrong. So we can say, for example, in the first question, a float, oops, a float is a decimal number. And then if their answer is wrong, then we can maybe give them the correct answer. 2 is an integer, so that they can actually learn from their mistakes.
That's more like.
So we need 3 more questions. So what should they be?
So you talked about inputs and outputs. So could it be like a keyboard is an input device, true or false?
Okay, good. It should be full stop. And the answer is true. And a keyboard is by definition an input device, but some keyboards are actually output devices as well, since some of them may produce light depending on what's going on in your computer. So what should be the fourth one?
But you didn't give the correct answer, did you?
Oh, right. A keyboard is yes. So what's the fourth question?
So let's say, what's the abbreviation of coronavirus 2019 disease?
Okay, so okay, coronavirus is the name of the virus, but COVID-19 is the name of the disease caused by it. So maybe we can ask, what is the disease caused by the coronavirus?
But isn't it the abbreviation of coronavirus 2019 disease?
So okay, it's coronavirus disease 2019, but one of them is the name of the organism that causes it. One of them is the name of the disease itself. It's like HIV and AIDS. So
Oh, I see.
COVID-19 is the name of the disease, whereas coronavirus is the virus itself.
And the last one, right?
Mm-hmm. So what should be the last question?
So this is a tricky one. So what's the name of the app that has fun challenges and how-to videos and also quizzes in it?
Okay, let me just change that. And fun challenges, new information. What was the third one?
Quizzes.
Quizzes.
I mean, you can also, new information stands for quizzes, so you can also write how-to videos there as well. Well, you knew the answer.
Yes, so let me just add the correct answers here so that if we get them wrong, we can see the correct answers. So, do you want to try if it works?
Yes, let's try it.
Okay, let's go. So as you can see, we started with 0 points as we planned. So what's your name? My name is Baha, so I'll write my name. And I have, So what is a float number? It's a decimal number.
But shouldn't it say hello, Baha, before
Yes,
it starts the question?
right. So what it does is actually, it does say that. But what happens is it happens so quickly that we can't really see it. So what we
Oh,
can
I
use
see.
is this other block, say for 2 seconds. So
Uh-huh.
if we do this, then it actually stays on the screen for 2 seconds.
Wow.
So
So
let's
if
give
it
this
would
a try.
like ask what's your name, so we couldn't see it as well. I mean, there is
Yes,
also and wait command.
yes. So the and wait part means that it doesn't do anything until you press this button to confirm that you're done. It
Okay.
waits the input. It waits for the input. And then since it doesn't really wait for an input with these say blocks, then we have to give it a duration of time for
Mhm.
how long it should stay on this and change that to reflect that.
So now you're going to fix all the code, right?
Yes. So in the meantime, maybe you can ask some other interesting questions to the people watching the live stream to make them think about what they've done today and what they've done tomorrow. Maybe we can repeat some of the stuff that we discussed today about variables.
Yeah, sure. So the first day of this week's session, we started with inputs and outputs. And yesterday we discussed about the conditional statements, like lots of if and else statements. And today we're going to, Baha is going to, and Baha is doing right now, the trivia questions for it's more like Sprite is the host right now, but it's a trivia competition for all. So today we'll learn about variables, and you may think of them as like values that changes over time, as long as you want them to change. So, for example, a daily life example would be like when you're conducting an experiment, and you may hear that like there is a boiling point constant for water. So while that's a constant, a variable changes a lot. So you could say the temperatures vary throughout this week. So it's like when Monday is a bit sunny and the Wednesday could be a more cloudy and Thursday would be more like rainy. So it changes a lot. It varies. And using our knowledge of these variables, inputs and outputs, we're going to design our own contest, and we encourage you to do so. And be sure to download the app, and you can always share your own quiz there. And
That's
today we
really nice.
also have a fun experiments, but I will continue to do that after when Baha is done.
Maybe this looks like it might take some more time, so maybe you can also discuss that.
Oh, Baha, and I guess we have another question from our guests. So they're asking,
Great.
does answering with uppercase letters of lowercase letters affect the correct answer?
Oh,
So
that's really nice.
that's a pretty good one.
So let's maybe see that for ourselves, right? Let's connect this and try.
For example,
So
the about the coronavirus,
okay, so
the answer be all capitals or
let's, for example, look at the first question. So we'll try to get the correct answer out. Let's use a lowercase d and see what happens. Okay. So the content is the same. It's still correct. It still accepts that as an answer. So even if the uppercase and lowercase letters might be different, it still works.
but is it the same for all programming languages like Python, JavaScript, and the ones you told us about the first day?
This language working at the moment. Okay, so let's move on. Let's maybe try giving it a wrong answer, okay? Let's say no to this and see what happens. We get the sad face and the fact that our answer was wrong. So let's try it. True. And that's correct. But here's something else that we might do here. For example, when we're asking someone a true or false question, sometimes they just prefer to write T or F, right? Again, does that make sense for you?
Well, I guess I missed few of the things you just said.
Can you hear me right now?
Yep.
Okay, so when we ask a true or false question, sometimes people prefer to write only T or only F, right? So we need to find a way to see if that's correct. And for that, we can maybe choose this. So this one takes the first letter of whatever is given to it. We can change which letter that should be, but we can also put this here. Oops. So we take the first letter of the answer and check if that's T. So let's run the code, and then I'll just write some random stuff to make these pass. So now if I just write T, that's correct as well.
Well, what if the question has two answers? I mean, both the vocabulary itself true and the first letter. Can you?
Yes, that's a really good question. So, someone might actually be writing some random stuff that starts with the letter T, and we need to check if that's not the case. So we will accept it if it's only T or true. As you might suspect from my language, we're going to use the OR block. So if the answer is T, let's get rid of this. or the answer is true, then we'll take that to be a correct answer. So let's put this back here. So now it's going to work either way.
I have another question that is very important. So
yes,
I mean, you use the blue block a lot, the answer block, but I mean, can you move upwards, like when it asks for your name?
Yes.
And it stores the answer Baha
So
in answer.
Is, yes.
You're using the answer block a lot. So what happens there? I mean, shouldn't it always say Baha?
And the reason why. Well, let's maybe turn this on. So if you look at what's right below points, we can actually see what's currently being assigned to the variable answer. So every time a new question is asked and every time I submit a new answer, then what's stored in the answer is Baha. But when I write the new answer, which is decimal number, then that's being stored. So every time we answer a question, we actually change the value of what the answer variable holds.
So that's why it has a name variable, because it varies.
Yes.
Okay, now it all
exactly.
makes sense.
Right. So, and so after this, maybe we can add a little message at the end. What do you say?
Okay.
Depending on how well they've done. So if they've maybe scored more than 0, if they have more, if they've gotten points so that they have a positive amount of points, then we can congratulate them. And if not, then maybe we can give them a message that tells them to work harder. So to do that, we'll
can we also tell them the overall score?
If then I missed what you just said. I'm sorry.
Can we also tell them how much they scored? Let's say congratulations.
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Yes. So let's go here and get the say blocks. So congratulations. You scored. So you scored a certain number of points. And to write that, we put join here. And since we're going to put something before and after that, then so we have to use join a bit awkwardly here. So we'll first join this part with how many points they scored and take this whole thing and then add to it the end of the sentence.
Wow.
And then we can duplicate this for here, and then we can say you only scored that many points. You should work harder for next time. Great. So let's start all over from the beginning. So my name is Baha. A float number is a decimal number. 2 is an integer. A keyboard is an input device. The name of this disease is COVID-19.
You're on a streak.
And Twing is this app. So I scored 10 points. We forgot to add this space right here.
Yeah.
Well, maybe since I scored a perfect 10, we can do something special for this. So we can put this if then else block right here inside this other if then else block and check if I answered exactly 5 questions right. So if points is equal to 10, then we can say, wow, you scored a perfect 10 points. So as you can see, we can do a lot to make this even better and even more fun. Add more questions, add more answers, and do all kinds of other interesting stuff. The only limit to this is your imagination. So
what do you say? Should we move on to the experiment?
So I think you have a small question for us that people can see on the screen right now.
Wow, you're right. So that was something I didn't know, and I just learned it today while preparing this presentation. So did you know the answer?
I did. I think I have an idea, but I'm not so sure. I'd like to learn the correct one.
So maybe we can do it as like a prize question for our guests and give the
Yes.
answer tomorrow.
Yes, that would be great. So if you know the answer to this, or if you're going to look it up quickly, and you can write that in the comments so that maybe you can win a prize tomorrow. We'll be announcing the correct answer and the winner in tomorrow's lesson. So,
All right.
yes, what's today's experiment again?
So we're going to become little spies and leave an invisible message for someone else to solve. So here I have a bowl, and inside this bowl I have 2 halves of lemon, as you can see, a lighter. So be sure to have someone like an adult with you because it will be flamey. Baha, are you there right now?
Yes, I'm listening right now.
All right, so, and I also have a Q-tip and a candle. And I'll bring paper. And here I have a blank sheet of paper. So first of all, I start
Great.
squeezing these lemons. Did you know how this experiment worked?
I actually did
Or
this
do you
at
have
home.
any idea?
Yeah, so I used to
Really?
do this when I was younger. I used to communicate with secret messages with my sister. So
Wow.
it's really fun to see other people learn how this is done and how it actually works.
So there are many other ways to do that. Of course, for example, we could also use a carton of milk instead of lemon. And I'll tell you the reason why in a bit.
Nice.
Here, I'm not sure if you can see it right, but I just spilled some of it. And I will and use it as a pen. And I'm not going to show you what I write. So here goes my secret message. So I'm going to light my candle. So as you can see, it shines brightly, and you can see it right now, right?
Yes, I can see it.
Not that visible.
Yes.
Now, I will hold my sheet of paper just about the candle. So I'm trying not to let it burn. I'll show you the result in a bit.
So if you're afraid of burning it, then maybe you can put it on the heater, or you can use your hair dryer to warm it up to produce this result. But be careful, because a hair dryer consumes a lot of electricity. So the more electricity we use, the more you use your hair dryer, the more electric plants end up working, and that means that there'll probably be more carbon emissions because of it. So prefer a more green alternative to heat that piece of paper up.
While I heat this paper, maybe you can talk about why we are using a lemon.
Well, so that was actually going to be my question to you. Do we have to use lemon? Can we use something else?
Yeah, right. As I said, you could also use a milk. All right, it's done. Baha, are you ready?
Yes.
Let me just put it off. Safety first. So
Wow. So it was barely visible before this, but now it's extremely clear.
the lemon here has lemon, but all kinds of lemons have assets in them that allows us to write this message. But also, as I said before, you could always use a carton of milk. So, and milks, they also have acids in it. And when you're
Wow.
writing,
I didn't know milk was actually acidic. That's interesting.
and after you're done writing this, and when you apply some heat to it, it becomes visible.
That's so cool.
That's because of the reaction that happens there.
So, if I do something like this at home, should I film it? What can I do with the video?
Be sure to share it online with your friends and everyone else around the world by using our mobile app Twing. And you can find it under the name Invisible Message with Lemon. And be sure to check out the other challenges that has invisible messages in them, like the ones with the milk, and also special pen, a friction pen.
That's amazing. So that's actually how these erasable pens work, right?
You're right. So it's
Wow.
the same. And when you apply some heat to it, and it becomes visible, more
Wow.
visible.
That's really interesting. So now I have two interesting things to do after watching this. I'll prepare my own trivia contest, and I'll also try to do this experiment at home. So that'll keep me busy until tomorrow's lesson.
You're right. So see you guys tomorrow, and be sure to wash your hands a few times a day, and have a safe day.
Goodbye.
Bye.